Welcome, everybody. My name is Rebecca Kessler. We are going to spend some time today digging into StepUp's Insight tool. But before that, we're going to introduce all of those on the call. So, Sue, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Sue Herrera, and I'm the Director of Instructional Development and a consultant at StepUp, and I'm happy to learn more about our Insight tool today.
And then Jess.
My name is Jessica Gray, and I'm the lead literacy consultant for Step Up. And we are just here, same with Sue, excited to learn about how our Insight tool can help support our clients.
And then Miss Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Bond, and I'm a consultant with Step Up, and I'm just like Sue and Jessica. I'm here and excited to learn about our new tool.
Thank you, guys. So, a little bit about me. I'm a consultant with StepUp, and I'm our lead around our Insight tool and all things special education. So in my previous work, I was an assistive technology coordinator or director. I also worked with severe needs special education students in a real world learning environment. And then the joke I make is that I am an expert on the continuum of education because I've taught almost all the grades. So I've done a lot of different things, which has been a lot of fun. But today we're really going to anchor into how do we support special educators and special education students make those educational advancements when it comes to their academics. And so in special education, we have a lot of barriers to building high quality IEPs, to building really good instructional models, and trying to close that gap. More often than not, we're maintaining a gap. And so if a student is 2 years behind and they make a year of growth, and then they progress to the next grade level, we're still 2 years behind. And so some of the barriers that we see at Step Up and whenever we talk to special educators and administrators really comes from understanding what a high quality IEP even is. What are those components and what is really required legislatively through IDEA and then the Missouri Standards and Indicators? And then what do we know about students and learning? Some of it also is organization and time. Special educators have larger caseloads than ever. And so understanding how to build really good quality IEPs, building specially designed instruction, understanding what progress monitoring is for and how we can use it to leverage learning is really challenging with a large caseload. Progress monitoring is really important when it comes to an IEP. And I was just in another webinar yesterday where a large group of teachers said, I don't really know what that is, and I don't think we're doing it. And it is legislatively required. But whenever we think of general educators, we are consistently doing formative assessments, doing summative assessments, reporting grades, helping parents and students understand what their learning looks like. And we should be doing that for special education students as well. And then whenever we think about training and underprepared teachers, we've got a lot of alternatively certified teachers. So people that are just entering the field with a lack of understanding about what works in special education and how those students are benefited through the general education curriculum. So with that, we're going to start with really defining a high quality IEP. So the Andrew F. Douglas case was a Supreme Court ruling that increased the level of standard of what an IEP is meant to do. So it needs to be reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. Before 2017, it was what was called de minimis benefit. So it just had to produce minimal benefits for the child. And the Supreme Court ruling said that's not providing faith to that child. We need to help them make adequate progress in the general education curriculum to unlock their ability to have future educational goals, employment, and independent living. And so IDEA makes it very explicit that it should be able to make progress in the general education curriculum. Historically, special education has had this connotation that it's outside gen ed studies and that we're doing things around school instead of really what their classmates and peers are doing to move forward in educational practices. And so IDEA makes that clear that it should be in the general education curriculum. A lot of special educators and process coordinators say that they're gen ed students first. That's where that comes from. So for a high quality IEP, special educators need to understand how to bridge the connection between their IEP goals and the Missouri Learning Standards. And if you're already a Step Up client and you've used our MAT tools, it is a direct connection to help them really make these high quality IEPs. So first, the purpose statement in the Missouri Learning Standards is really to define the knowledge and skills students need in each grade level and course for success in college, post-secondary training, and careers. Now, IDEA says that we want to prepare them for future education, employment, and independent living. Those are very, very similar whenever we really think about the goals of education and what we want to do in public ed to support these students in their future life. So these are interconnected. They don't have separate tangential goals. So at Step Up, we really want to help special educators and general educators really have clarity around what the standards are and how that impacts a student's education. So over on this left-hand side, we start with a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We know what we're teaching, we know when we're teaching it, and we plan for how long things are going to take. We do that by having our priority standards laid out. So the state has done that work for us to say, if students are learning these priorities, that will unlock their future education and accelerate their learning. With our proficiency scales, we understand what learning looks like at each level of understanding. So is a student approaching the standard? Are they a level 2? Are they meeting the standard at a level 3? Then over here on the special education side, a student's present level of performance really boils down to where are they currently functioning versus what are their same age peers able to do. So we want to look at that difference. And then we build those individualized goals in instruction. So that's where that specially designed instruction comes from. So with that, at Step Up, we use the 7-step IEP process. And so this is just the first 4 steps, and then we'll look at the other steps in just a second. So step 1 is to understand the standards and the process of linking district curriculum with state standards. So at Step Up, we do that through our curriculum management tool and using our proficiency scales and vertical progressions to create that alignment. A lot of times this work is done without special educators, and they need to be part of the conversations and at the tables so that they understand what those standards are and what they look like and what the expectations are for their students when they pull them out of that gen ed setting or when they push into the gen ed setting. Step 2 is to determine where the student is functioning in relation to the grade level standards. So where are they versus what's expected? And I love using our vertical progressions for this because it's so clean and clear to see how the standard progresses over time. You can really isolate down to what are they currently able to do and what grade level does that fall in? How far away are we away from proficient at their grade level expectation? Step 3 is to develop the present level of achievement and functional performance, and I'll show you a new addition to the Insight tool with our present level builder in just a little bit. Step 4 is to develop measurable and annual goals aligned with grade level academic standards. We have to understand what the standards mean and how they're assessed in order to do this process and then to build that IEP goal. So although special educators have to have a really wide general body of knowledge, this is where we have those really in-depth conversations with our gen ed teachers and why they're invited to the IEP table. Step 5 is to assess and report progress throughout the year. So in our Insight tool, I'll show you our progress monitoring tool, but you can also use that to build your quarterly progress reports and everything like that. Step 6 is identify specially designed instruction. This one, we have a specially designed instruction template, and that I'm going to demonstrate today how you can use our proficiency scales to build that SDI plan. And then step 7 is to determine the most appropriate assessment option. So one experience I've had out in the field when I'm working with some people, I've had a teacher that said, well, my kids are doing a PBL and they're doing such a great job and they're doing such high level learning. And I was like, that's amazing. I love that you're doing that with them. Are you giving them the opportunity to practice the way their peers are going to be assessed as well? And she was like, well, no. I said, okay, well, you can do the PBL and that can be a part of their learning cycle. But if we're not giving them the opportunity to practice assessment the same way that their peers are for things like the MAP test and the EOC or certification test in high school for welders and things like that, if they're not able to see those style of questions, then they're truly not prepared to answer them appropriately. So we want that built in as well. So before we hop into the tool, I'm going to talk a little bit about our present level using our vertical progressions. So like this example here of a vertical progression, I can see how this progresses from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. So I can identify the student is able to do this skill. I can say in the 2nd grade level, they are able to add or subtract within 1,000. But child is a 5th grader. So the 5th grade expectation is to add and subtract, cover it up with all my little guys, there we go, is to add and subtract multi-digit whole numbers and decimals to the thousands place and justify the solution. So now I can see what that gap really is. It's not just I'm taking all this large body of assessment and then I don't really know what that means. So I take those assessments in the present level and then I identify based on the standards where the student is functioning. So I should be able to identify if they have a deficit in math, where are they currently performing in math versus what does their grade level look like. And so we can build that into our present level. Next, we've got some key features. So I'll talk through these real quick because we're going to actually take a deep dive into them. So within the IEP tool, we have our standards-based IEP process, vertical progressions for ELA and math, our SMART goal builder, a student summary page, so you can use that to create your IEP snapshot that you might give to general educators. We've got our goals with some drop downs that align with the map tools. We have data tracking and specially designed instruction template. So all of those are built into this tool. And then I also wanted to speak to if you use some form of compliance software, there's quite a few different ones that are out there and available that align with SIS tools and things like that. So if you use a compliance software, all of our tools are built in Google Sheets. So they're really easy to manipulate and add information that is very specific to the student that you're serving or to your environment. But all of these are formatted in such a way where you can easily print or download as a PDF and upload to your compliance software. So they partner together really well. But think about your compliance software is what ensures that all the components of the IEP are present. The Insight tool really addresses what academic supports the student needs to make progress forward. So your compliance tool is going to make sure that you have each section filled out and you filled out Form C and you've got the boxes checked and all the things like that. Where Insight is going to help your special educators build specially designed instruction that's going to be effective and is going to work, close the academic gaps for that child, and really progress monitor to where it's easily understandable for parents, families, and for the special educator to make informed decisions moving forward. So they partner really well together. So with that, we're going to take a deep dive into the tool. You have to be in the right account. Oh, no, I'm clicking all the wrong things. Okay, here we go. So first off, we've got a table of contents just to make it easier to hop between pages if you need to. So we could quickly go to goal 1 or goal 8. We can go into our goal builder. We can use our vertical progressions. You can also slide across the bottom to access all the tabs. So it just depends on how you like to navigate. So we start with our 7-step standards-based IEP process. That's a mouthful to say. So for here, we've got each of those steps. We can record what information we have or some notes that we have as we're building that IEP. And so this template is here for you. This is also easily printable. Then within our vertical progression, so these are our ELA ones, I can go through and I can find if a student is really struggling with point of view or they're really struggling with research writing. I can click on any of these vertical progressions and we can see how they progress from kindergarten throughout the grades. Over on the left-hand side, if it's highlighted yellow, it means it's a priority standard. And so if I click on this, I get the map tool that's corresponding. So we can look at the assessment information, some teaching ideas and ways to break that down. And over on the right-hand side, we have a sample goal. So this one gives us some of that language of what that could look like. And then this one is hyperlinked to the student scale. So especially for students that you want to help them become a little bit more independent in their learning, you want to develop that self-determination process, they can use the student scale to look through and say, yes, I know how to do all of these things. This is the thing I'm struggling on. They can track and progress their learning. So we have those for ELA, and then we also have those for math. So we can see how all of those change as they get older and all those key topics. Our present level builder is something that is a little bit newer. So a conversation that I had with I guess she was a special education director, was that when we're building present levels, teachers don't understand or know how to connect what standards a student is struggling with what the educational implication is for a gen ed setting, and then how to have that conversation about what they're able to do, what they're struggling with, and just all that needs to be wrapped up into that. So the present level builder is customizable for you and what you're doing with that student, but also includes all the things that are in the DESE standards and indicators to make sure that it's compliant. So up here at the top, we've got their name, their gender, grade level, strengths, interests, their school name, date of eligibility, disability category. These are the 13 IDEA disability categories. So you can just click which one is appropriate. And we've got our preferences and concerns. So to show you how this works, rather than you watching me type, I'm going to copy and paste these boxes in here. We've got here, we're going to identify under autism. So then down here, this is where it takes all of that summary information and crafts it into a summary statement. So now we see Sarah Johnson is a fifth grader at Super Cool Elementary. On 11/25/25, she was found eligible as a student with a disability in the category of autism. So it crafts your statement for you, almost like a Mad Lib. So it takes all of that important information, synthesizes it down. But you can see a lot of these are grayed out. So if it's gray, it means that you're not going to copy and paste that into your IEP document or into your compliance software. So for here, I need to identify, how does Sarah's disability impact her? Is it in the academic setting, the developmental, or the functional? So up here, I'm going to look and say, well, Sarah's disability is really impacting her math skills. That's the data that we have. And then I can actually, I pulled this earlier. I'm going to copy and paste the impact on the progress in gen ed, and then what she's able to do and what she's struggling with. Then down at the bottom, we'll see that our academic one is now white. So it says this is a category that we're going to copy and paste. The disability has been found to impact Sarah Johnson academically in the following areas: math problem solving, math computation. Sarah Johnson's disability impacts progress in the general education curriculum by preventing her from completing grade level math problems using algorithms. So it takes all of that information and synthesizes it back into a paragraph style that is compliant and follows DESE's protocols. So I can do that for each section that her disability impacts based on data and the assessments that we've collected. So I could select that she has issues with behavioral skills or gross motor skills, and it will turn on that section. So this one, I haven't written anything. So it has that it impacts behavioral and gross motor, but I don't have any other information because I have not filled in these corresponding teal boxes. So watch really quick. If I turn this checkbox off, it all goes back to gray. And so if it's gray, we don't need it. A little bit further down, we've got related services because that's also required. So this one, they are not able to follow emergency procedures with their class. So we're going to say that Sarah is able to. She needs OT and speech. And so down here, you have to say what they do need. So there are concerns in OT and speech. You also say there are no concerns in PT, vision, and hearing. So if you watch this box here, if I click something like hearing, it will move from behind here to here. So it says that there are concerns here. So it will say what they do and do not need. We also do that with counseling. So they do attend counseling outside or they do not. So we choose one of those and it will populate the rest of that statement. So now when you're filling out your compliance software with your IEP, I can say I'm going to copy and paste this cell here. I can paste it as text into my document. And so if it's white, we're going to take each of those. But anything that's gray, we don't need. And there's directions for that up top. So that's our present level builder. It helps us really build out what is the impact on general education, what does that look like, what can they do versus what can't they do, what supports might they need. And so our goal builder is similar, that it's kind of like a Mad Lib. So we have the framing here, but we don't have any of the information. So with our goal builder, I'm going to type this one live so you can see how it works. So we want them to fluently perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Of decimals. So it sounds like they're working on a 5th grade scale. So what's the level of accuracy? We can put any percentage, so I'm going to put 90%. We're going to measure on 2 out of 5 data days. We want it to have a graphic organizer. We're going to measure weekly for progress, and then we want by the end of the IEP cycle. So the cool thing about this is now we've got this goal. So the student will fluently perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division of decimals with 90% accuracy on 2 out of 5 data days using a graphic organizer measured weekly by the end of the IEP cycle. So we have that entire goal ready, scripted out, ready to go, and it fulfills the requirement that the educator made the goal specific to the child. So we followed the standards and indicators SMART goal format, but we have a really clean, clear goal that makes sense. And so if your district uses a different format, I can just recreate that format, and that way it can be however your district wants it to be written. So I've got that goal right now, so I'm going to copy and paste that, and we're actually going to head over to one of the goal pages to paste that in. So we'll revisit this in just a little bit, but I'm going to fill in this IEP SMART goal so that we've got this here and ready to go. Okay, so that is our goal builder. Next is our accommodations and modifications. These again follow the DESE standards and indicators, so I can click to select what this child needs for accommodations and modifications for their gen ed setting. So I'm going to say they need directions read aloud, they can copy from instructional resources, they need oral cues, maybe they need the test read to them or a modified test format. So as I check these boxes, it doesn't look like anything's happening here, but it's all happening somewhere else. So we can click to select. You can also modify these boxes. So as a district, if you say, well, we offer whatever accommodation, you can add these in under here. So there's some blank boxes for that. Then on our student summary page, those will auto-populate down here. So whenever we do our IEP snapshot that we give to the teacher, it's sorted for the teacher to also be compliant to the IEP in the classroom. So as an educator, whenever I was the gen ed setting, I would take all the accommodations modifications and sort them by setting. So I would say when I give a test, when I give an assessment, these kids get this, these kids get this, these kids get this. For a gen ed teacher, this section is going to make it so much cleaner for them to do that work to make sure that they're compliant to the accommodations and modifications as well. Okay, up at the top for our student summary, I'm going to say that this is sample student. Again, we've got those 13 disability categories. We're going to stick with autism. Actual grade level, let's make this baby a 5th grader. And then you can modify any of these sections. So it depends on what information you want or need to provide to your gen ed teachers. So you can have their IEP case manager, the initial day of the IEP, when the review is going to be scheduled for. And then as you'll see for this goal 1, this is that goal that we built in the goal builder. So when you paste it into any of the goal tabs, it will auto-populate in your summary document. So you don't have to make sure that everything is in line. It will do that work for you. There's also a quick link. So you can quickly go to goal 1 and we can go here. We can see what's going on with goal 1 and track progress. Another area down here that you can adapt for your needs is services. So I know whenever I was the gen ed teacher, and I know many of us on this call, when our students would have OT, PT, Title I reading, we would want to make sure that they're pulled at the right time, that they're not going to miss instruction in the gen ed setting. So having that really clean and clear on here allows the classroom teacher to make appropriate instructional decisions to make sure that child is included in Tier 1 instruction as well. So that is our student summary page. And then we've got our goals page. This one just makes me happy. So this part up here, this is some magic. So we've got, for subject, I'm going to select that we have a math goal. Now the kid that I made as a sample student is a 5th grader. We're going to say based on their present level that they're operating as a 2nd grader. And then I can choose a 2nd grade math standard to attach their goal to. So I'm going to look down and see what's the most appropriate. So we might say that they can add and subtract up to four 2-digit numbers. Well, I can see that's a supporting standard. And what we know about the priority standards is that they are paced to unlock content at an accelerated rate. So we have the most important things are our priority standards. So I can actually click here and I can look back through and say, is there something else that that child is able to do that I can connect to future understanding and future learning? So maybe add and subtract within 1,000, and that one's a priority standard. Either way, whether it is priority or supporting, you'll get the teacher tool that pops up here, and you have access to the MAT tool from here, which will make planning easier in just a second. So then what I've got is now that I've identified that they are performing at a 2nd grade level, they're able to add or subtract within 1,000 and justify the solution. Now, because they were selected as a 5th grade student, the related grade level standards will isolate to 5th grade within the same classification system. So this one is an NBT, numbers base 10. 5th grade, now I only see 5th grade numbers base 10. So then from here, I'm going to look through and see. I want them to write numbers to billions, round numbers, add and subtract, whole numbers, and decimals. That seems the most aligned, and I know that that's probably pretty important. But in 5th grade, that's a supporting standard. That doesn't mean we can't pick it. If we know that that's what that child needs to progress in education, we have the determination as the IEP team to make that selection. So again, this one says supporting, but I've got the teacher tool linked here so I can build that specially designed instruction and see where they are and where they need to be. Over here on this right-hand side, we've got our 7-step process, just to refer to, and then we've got a printable lesson planning tool. So if you prefer to have print and write in like a Google Doc, or you want to have a sheet to write in, you can do that here. And then there's another space where you could do it a little bit further below. So that is our drop down for the digital math tools. Then down here, we've got space to progress monitor for quarters 1 through 4. So I've got some quick access links. If I click quarter 3, it's going to drop me down to quarter 3 here, quarter 2, quarter 1. So I can take notes here. This helps with our progress monitoring and our progress reporting. So we could actually take these cells here and we could print those for the parent as our progress report, because we're going to have all of our notes here in one spot. So we've got here, we can create benchmark goals. You don't have to do that, depends on your district and what your district decides, but you can create benchmark goals to say this is the larger goal and we're going to chunk it up by each quarter. Then this will change based on what we put into this category here. So I've got one in the interest of time. I'm going to copy and paste this over. So we're going to track and see how the student is doing with this goal. So with this, we can track weekly, because that was part of my IEP cycle. I can write down and say what the plan is for each week and how that's working, and then I can put in the raw score. So raw score wise, if you have a student that performs 4 out of 5, and you say, great, they got 80%, they met the goal. Well, they might have, or you need to increase the cognitive load. So next time we're going to try it out of 10, and we're going to increase the number of attempts to make sure that that's really an accurate representation of what they know how to do. So some teachers like to keep it the same all the time and just have it always out of 10 or always out of 5. That's based on you as an educator and what you think is right for that student. It will automatically convert that to a percentage score for you, so you can be consistently tracking if they're approaching that goal or not. And then we also have these drop downs just to make it really clear. So if I say they haven't really made progress, so they didn't regress, but they're not making progress. Oh, here's a progression. We kind of stayed stagnant. We have another progression, and we say, woohoo, they met the goal. And so we can do this process. So you can print just these cells for parents to show them the progress that their child is going through for the entire quarter. So whenever you go to fill out your progress reports, you can screenshot this, you can print it, you can attach it and say, this is the information that you need. This is what they were able to do. This is the supports I gave them. This is how they progressed over time. And then that can lead to really good conversations. But that should save you a lot of time whenever it comes to your progress reports. Then a little bit further down, so right underneath that, we have where we can plan for specially designed instruction. The way that I hope this is going to be simple for you is that you can open both teaching tools. So where they are, where they need to be. And what I would do is I would split screen these. Can we still see my screen, everyone here? Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't lose it whenever I do stuff like this. So I can split screen and I can see this is what the student is able to do. These are the types of questions that they should be able to answer if they are able to do this skill. So we have the scale on the left-hand side and our assessment questions on the right-hand side. If you have not seen or used step-ups for either vertical progressions or proficiency scales, you need to, because they're going to save you a lot of time. So over here, I can double check to make sure that this child can actually do what we think they're able to do. Then I can look and I can compare to what they need to be able to do. So they can add and subtract within 1,000. They need to be able to add and subtract multi-digit whole numbers and decimals to the thousands place. And so that's what we're going to be working towards. As a special educator, I can use the information from these sample stems to start thinking through how different is this than what they're able to do? How similar is this to what they're able to do, so that I can build in the proper supports? If a student is able to do this on the left-hand side and they do it really well, I might show them a support like adding, subtracting with graph paper to keep all of your numbers in line. And then I might extend that skill into decimals as we're working over here. And so giving them that support tool and then slowly pulling that tool away. But I can see these two skills are not that far away from each other, which is great news for this child. The tendency, though, in special ed is that we'll take, oh, the child's at a second grade level, I'll teach them the third grade one. Well, now we're not closing the gap. What we want to do is we want to say, what can they do? What should they be able to do? How close are those together? And then what plan can I do to motivate that learning forward? So we're going to work towards this grade level skill. So using the insight tool, what I'm going to do, I'll put this side by side here to make this simple too. What I'll do here is we've got our level 2 and 3 skills. Now, because this is a supporting standard, we only have the level 3, which is why it's easier sometimes if you pick a priority standard because you have more to work with and you have that the basis underneath that level 3 to pull from. So what they need to be able to do is this. So I'm going to pull this and I'm going to pop this over here. So now I've got that these are the essential skills that we're going to focus on. These are some of the examples. So I'm going to pull this over here. So now I've got these are the mini lessons I need to teach. This is what I'm going to have to work through. So down here for specially designed, I'm going to say we're going to start with addition. So this is what we're working towards. And I wrap this text so I can see it. This is what we're working towards. And then for independent practice, I can go over here and I could pull a sample question from here, although you're going to run out of questions. These are examples and materials from state documents. So I could take this and say, okay, I need to do things like this. And so then we can use an AI tool and we can generate more. We can go find worksheets or ask our gen ed teacher using their materials and say, can you give me what you're doing? And then I will develop more practice off of that or the supports needed, like using a graphic organizer. And then we've got our map equivalent assessment. So you might choose that this is going to go here and that your independent practice is that you're going to practice adding with decimals in shopping scenarios. So you might choose this is the way that you're going to do this. You have a setup like a kitchen grocery store in your classroom and kids are going to go pick items and they're going to pretend to be the cashier and do the process to add using those decimal numbers. But then you want to make sure that you are planning in time to give them the map level equivalent assessment. And so that's how we're going to start working towards closing that gap, is making sure it's really closely aligned to our general education teachers. So that is a lot, but that is on our goal tab. And then lastly, that what we built in here is a support tab. So this one has common questions, or how do I use this, or how does this part work? What's the instructions for this? How do I make it do this thing I need it to do? So we have visual directions because that seems to be easier for a lot of people. It has some text features and then it has the picture image with like a circle or a highlight to say this is where you're going to get this information. And then we also have video linked instructions. And as a district, you can also build this out yourself. So before you give teachers access to the tool, if you say, this is a special thing that we do in our district, this is how we schedule PT, this is how we provide sensory time, this is the schedule that we have available. You can add all of that in here as well so that teachers have links to all that in one location. One district I worked at had a special website for special education, and it was built like behind the login screen of their district website. You could put the access here for that to make it really quick for teachers to get there as well. So there's lots of things built into here. This is our insight tool. We also have a condensed version of this tool, which is just a special education IEP builder. So if you're looking for something to make really, not strict, but you want really well aligned academic IEPs that are going to make progress, we have an IEP builder tool that takes out these goal tabs. So you just wouldn't have access to the progress monitoring or the drop downs for the map tools, but you would still get the vertical progressions, the present level builder, the goal builder, and things like that. Okay, and so within this, we might be able, Jess, do you know if we're able to link a slide deck within our MILN at the end?
I think
Okay,
so. I'll
perfect.
talk to Val, make sure that it's
okay. So we'll try to link this as well, but if you're watching here, we have some additional material. So we have our fast tracking, our personalized IEP process, so you can scan and get that. It's also on our website. But then within here, we have additional information about trainings and support that we offer. So we can help your special educators build high quality IEPs, plan specially designed instruction that's going to be effective. How do we use student data to motivate learning forward? How do we work to close that gap? There's more information on our website as well if you want to show this to somebody. So if you want to show this to an administrator or someone like that, there's a short video about the tool. And then within this, so if we can link this for you, we will. This has information where you can see some of the screenshots about what is in the tool, what it looks like, so you can have those conversations. And then we do these demos at least once a month. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining me today, and I hope that this was helpful.